Did you figure out a way to record this, by the way? I don't know if we have that option.
It is not really an option. It's not like embedded in Discord, but you can like screen record. So yeah, I'm just doing that on my laptop.
Cool.
Yeah. There are also additional like easy add-ons that you can get. This was just the easiest one for me with my old
This is
Mac.
a great idea.
Yeah, I was hopeful that it would be easier for folks than trying to download Teams or go on whatever.
The only thing that was a little odd, I will say, when I first...
Hey, sorry, I was trying to figure out my microphone.
Sure.
I'm getting called into a birth, so I'm coming live from the shower. But I'm listening, super excited to hear.
When I first joined, it was like I think I got voice first, and then there was a different button I had to click to say watch stream.
Right.
Which then showed me so there was like a couple different steps that I wasn't used to, but I got there.
Yeah, right, because it's not like joining a meeting. It's like joining, like a call or, something else. But
yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you made it work. There were a couple of other people who voted for this time, but I don't know. I know that
Jen said she's at a birth, so now she won't make it.
Right. That's fine. We can start talking, and if folks join, that's cool. It looked like, Serene was the only other one who voted for this time. But
yeah, she said she's trying to get Everett down for a nap.
Oh, okay. Yes, whole different challenge. Well, I'm glad that the two of you are here, and that we could make this happen on such short notice. I know this was kind of slotted in. One of the topics, or this topic, I guess, is just something that's been a consistent, not necessarily a challenge every time, but it's often in the back of my mind of honestly even wanting to try to start creating closure from the beginning of the relationship, or like thinking about how I'm going to create closure. And that I often end feeling like I did an okay job, or that it's something that I'm working on, but that I wish that there were things that I could do. It never feels, tied up with a bow and like as satisfactory as I often feel when I'm, leaving the hospital after a birth. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that I find challenging, and of course I'm sure that other people would find challenging, and then see maybe what other folks do in those situations that are helpful.
Awesome.
Here are some of the things, I just jotted down a few of the things that I often find challenging in the process of working through those postpartum sessions to, end feeling satisfied and as though I'm confident that the family, got what they needed, that the birthing person got what they needed, and both that they are comfortable kind of if they never see me again, but also would be comfortable to reach out if they needed me in the future. So some of the things that always feel so big to me is that, of course, this has been a super intimate and big and intense moment that you've shared with them. And sort of like, if you were in any kind of big, intense situation, folks who've been through, right, even like turbulence on the plane, we get off and we're like close with these kindred people now, and it can feel odd to leave that situation of like mutual, a big experience we've gone through together, that it just creates a challenge then to close that, or to know how to close that. And I think we as a culture maybe aren't great at closing relationships in general. It can take years to kind of feel like that whatever that end of relationship was kind of closed in an okay way. But definitely, right, we have to build intimacy really quickly, sometimes in that first initial consultation, where it is really important to get kind of as close as we can, as quickly as we can, to make sure that we're the right kind of energy for each other, and then continue building that throughout those, prenatal visits, so that we can be really intimate and present and together in birth. And then how do we kind of not turn that off, but taper that down or kind of like decelerate that relationship at the end.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone has feedback at any moment, feel free to reach out or speak up.
No, it's so true. I mean, it's funny because even saying that, it's like having friendships from like high school or something, you know, that you were so close with, and then realizing that like there's not really necessarily a mutual like similarities anymore, and how do you end it without feeling like there's harsh feelings or anything like that.
Right.
So I can relate to so many different like areas of life for it. And I just, even your one comment, Audrey, about like, are they going to be okay if we don't ever see each other again? Like sometimes I feel like, is it my responsibility to check in, you know, every year on the kid's birthday, or like how often does that need to continue?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm definitely sometimes tempted of like, oh, you know, or at the next season of like, oh, right, this time last year I was getting ready, you know, for that birth with that person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say like, because I'm really bad at like, or I would say like I just haven't been able to give that amount to like continue to follow up in that way on a regular basis. That being said, I will say like there's clients who reach out to me with that follow up, and so you know, I'm sure that there's some who probably would love it that don't and are waiting on me. But I guess it gives me some kind of comfort of knowing that, like, and I kind of do leave it that way at the end of, like, you know, even though I'm not your doula and, like, we're not going to, like, I'm not going to be checking in on you regularly. Like, if you need something, like, I'm still around and you can always reach out to me. And that I love, and I always tell them, I'm like, one of the best things you can do to always make my day is send me a photo update. Let me see how you guys are doing. And so I kind of leave them with that. And so, you know, those who are inclined, you know, some of them do. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When do you have that conversation and how?
I have it during the postpartum, right before it, like that's kind of what I leave them with. You know, this is my last time that I'm going to be reaching out to make an effort to like, that I can guarantee that I'll be reaching out to make an effort to see you. Obviously there's going to be some clients that you do build certain relationships with and whatnot, but like, yeah, like if that's the last time, then okay, here's my moment to like remind them of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of like helps kind of close it out. And yeah, because I like to make sure it's verbally like said really clearly, like if you need me, I'm here, but like I need it to be clear that I have a limited capacity and whatnot, and this is where like the effort may end.
Yeah,
right.
That's great.
And that's such a like hard thing to articulate until you're actually like, no, I'm just gonna say it explicitly and like make sure that everyone understands. I'm available if you need me, but also this is kind of the end, and I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And we're moving on.
Yeah. And of course there's like certain clients also that you see are not where we want them to be at that point. And so we know that, you know, that maybe you do let them know you're going to reach out, or maybe you do even if you don't let them know or something. But
that's a good point, I guess, in those types of situations where you leave feeling like, okay, I know that I have like these resources I need to send this individual, or you know, something specific that you feel like you need to follow up with them on. Then that conversation gets skipped, and then do you revisit it again later? That's where I think I struggle, is like
yeah,
we become almost more entangled, and you know, and then how do we break free from it?
Right. Yeah, it's trying to create like flexible closure of like, we want it to feel complete and clean and yeah, kind of, you know, we're all good and happy and satisfied and okay to move on, but also we're like still here. Yeah, that's the challenge. I also feel like my postpartum visits have been kind of challenging with folks recently because so many of the births have like demanded so much from me that then it's like I can't give you more time in the next like 3 days. I just need you to be okay to be without me for a few days. So then it creates this like, but I know that I need to see you and I want to see you, but also I need to sleep for maybe a really long time, or like I need to just like eat and not be on call. I find that adds additional pressure to how to create a like smooth postpartum transition.
I totally agree with that, Audrey. I've had 2 situations recently where one of them I had a upcoming travel that they knew about, so they delivered, and then I immediately left town like 2 days later. And then by the time I got back, I don't remember if I had a cold or then I just didn't see them. I never, I reached out, and they would kind of have resumed life at that point. There wasn't like, it was like their postpartum period even felt like it was kind of over in a sense, you know? So like we just never did the postpartum visit. And it feels so unfinished. Like I failed to deliver something.
I know I've had a few instances like that where certain things get in the way and like it's delayed for whether it's me, them, etc. And there have been a couple of instances where, while it's not my favorite thing in the world, I feel like it's better than nothing. That usually what I'll offer is like, hey, if we can fit in a virtual visit, I try and do that, and then give them the option of like, if you feel like it's necessary, like, or we feel like it's necessary, like I can still come to you, or we can have this kind of count as that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I mean, at least you get to like put eyes on them, even if it's not in person. Like, just, I don't know, make that touch point. And again, maybe you can't see like the full extent of their home and you know how everything is going, but I feel like you can still get a lot by just at least like seeing their faces and talking, hearing their voices and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it does help to have that kind of emotional bridge of, like you said, we want to make sure that you are healthy and checking in, and that you know that we're available and like are a person that you could speak to if you were having challenges. And also we want to give
we want to see how you are.
You know, I send out a welcome packet when I first contact, so maybe there could be some sort of a like goodbye packet that I sent out, the email that has like resources, mom support groups, you know, and then like asks for a review and just kind of
love it. Writing it down. I'm writing everything down.
I should totally do that.
Yeah,
that's genius.
I started putting in my, I'm gonna try and find it so I can quote it. Well, I don't have to quote it exactly. In my like list of services that are in my package, I added on the last one. It says like unlimited, like emotional support or virtual support for 4 weeks. Like I put a time limit on it for the postpartum period, and then so at least there's like that written out that says for a 4-week period you can contact me for things. But
yeah. We can. I have another slide with some conversation points for us to talk about those kind of things, of helpful things. I didn't know if there were more, or I guess I wanted to use space to acknowledge the challenge of the end of this relationship. Because I feel like when people hear about being a doula, it's all like, oh, that's so incredible. You get to like be there. And sometimes, family members, there's a bit of like jealousy, or like, oh, like you get this exclusive, you're like the one who's going to support them. And it just feels like it's such a big, intense, emotional thing that then it ends, kind of abruptly when you walk out of the hospital. And I know so many times when I'm driving home from the hospital, because I always have such a long drive here, I just like look at all the cars and I'm like, none of you know what I've been up to today. It's so big. And it like feels, you have to like come down from that, and they get to be in this bubble with all these other people who are kind of supporting them in that postpartum process. And we just kind of go back to life that like, I'm guess, trying to build like postpartum closure for ourselves too, not just the relationship and the client, but like what do we do postpartum that helps us, I guess, kind of close that relationship. And I know for myself,
that's such a good point.
both as a person who doesn't have kids, and I guess just even as a person who is not the parent of this child, there's a bit of a kind of role change that, especially for first-time parents, when I'm in prenatals with them, most of the time they don't know anything. And so anything that I tell them, like, oh, okay, let me write that down. Like, oh, yes, that, oh, I didn't know that. And then once the baby comes, I can tell you some things, but that's your baby. And so my goal, my responsibility and role in this is not to tell you things necessarily. It's just to kind of sit there and be like, yep, that is a challenging thing that happens with newborns. Or like, yeah, it's a different role to not be the one providing, you know, emotional support in that way, or like preparing them for something. We're kind of just kind of seeing how their life has been. So anyway, do other people have other things that they find particularly challenging about it, or reasons why it's challenging for you?
I think kind of similar to what Heidi just put a question in about, do you find like you get closer with some people versus others? 1,000%, yes. And then when you don't get such, like when I don't get as much engagement postpartum from a client, I worry, like, did I do something wrong? Were they unhappy with services? Like, you know, I kind of self pick apart and reflect versus just, I've now with more experience and time, I kind of just realized that like, it's just, for some people, they hired me for a job and I served that job and that job is now over. It's just more of a transaction versus others. You know, like when I'm interviewing, I'll say to them, like, you should pick a doula that you feel like you want to be your new best friend. But that doesn't always apply to everybody, you know, like, and I think the connection is important to feel that way. Like I want, you know, they should feel vulnerable with us and safe and all of that. But for some people, it really is just about a transaction of like having that advocate and that education, and once it's done, they're totally okay with it being done, and I have to be okay with it then too. And not think I did something wrong.
I find that hard.
I feel like,
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like the flip side is the hard part. Like, I think about like, you know, there was a client I took way back when that was like a friend of my aunt's that I kind of got pushed into taking, and they were one of the most draining and emotionally heavy clients that I've dealt with. And I think because there was that connection, like I feel like there were times where she put effort into trying to like maintain that relationship. And for me, it was just like, it was literally just emotionally way too draining to be around her. And so like that was probably the most challenging client relationship in terms of like creating that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, especially in your family of like, oh, I'm going to see you again and people are going to know about your feelings about this.
Yes, and like, and almost like that force to try and make it happen, and like, but how much do you let yourself, you know, be drained for the sake of seeming peace? I don't know.
Yeah,
I find it particularly relevant too when we don't have the same like feelings about how the birth went. I find if I've done so much prep work with someone, it's happened a couple of times that the person has explicitly hired me because they want to try to avoid a cesarean, and we've done so much work, and then we get to the point and they do a scheduled cesarean, and it's like what?
Yeah.
But they're happy, and the birth, you know, was really quick, and they didn't have to see or hear or smell what we experience in that situation. I don't know how many of you have been in cesareans in that way, but you know, for them, it was like, oh, like the birth was easy. You did what you needed to do. I felt supported. I'm chill. And I am on the other side of that, like, well, I did not have that experience, but you are happy. And so how do I create, you know, or like, how do I support that, or like what do I do with my emotions and support you and your emotions? I feel like those situations have been really hard for me to try to create closure.
And to like kind of add that back with your comment earlier, Audrey, about like how do you come down from that feeling after birth, even when it's a positive experience. I mean, that's why having this is so helpful. I mean, we have to be able to dump all of those emotions sometimes and process and debrief, and also when it is just incredibly powerful and such a high, somebody else who is excited for us too, because that's equally a big part when you walk away from it and you're just like, I want to tell everybody what I just got to be a part of, and nobody really gets it. And the birth keeper piece of it too is like, you shouldn't talk about it so much. So it's hard sometimes, but you know, having other doulas, having our collective to be able to like be excited for one another is, I think, a huge piece that helps me at least kind of get some of that closure and be able to go back to being part of normal society afterwards.
Right, yeah.
A little easier.
I'm still new to the group, but I'm so excited because I had like my first traumatic birth, and I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I just need to share this because I don't know where to put it. And it was a dear friend of mine from my church, so I'm really close with her, but she's going through postpartum, and the last thing we're going to talk about or unpack is that, and she felt good, she felt fine, but for me it was like, oh my goodness, this doctor did this and this and this, and like without any of her. So for me it was really heavy and emotional, and so I just had to call a friend and be like, I'm so sorry I'm dumping this on you, but this was really rough for me, and it was my first one, so I just honestly I didn't know where to put it. I was like, where does it go?
We're here for that, girl.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And these are so cool. The roundtables are awesome.
At one point, we talked about using Discord more often for that spontaneous kind of just like birth share. We don't do it often enough, but do it whenever you need. Like really just come on and say like, hey, I'm on my way home. Anyone available to chat? Or just open up a channel just like this, and whoever's free can join in, you know? So there's no like organization that needs to take first place, you know, take place first. Or like, you know, anybody can do it at any time.
There were even a time where, like, me and Brooke both had, I think, a lot more leniency in our like openness in our schedules and some flexibility, and we would just like start like this, like a work with me chat, and everyone who was just like getting stuff done would just hop in, and we just kind of like work with each other. I mean, we'd obviously often end up just chatting about stuff and not getting enough work done, but it was very cathartic.
Yeah,
and also like, I know that it's nice to know that the group as a whole is available, but also that like we are explicitly telling you that we are available if you want to contact us. Because I know I have a doula nearby here who has said, you know, oh, if you're ever on the way home from a birth and you want to talk about something, but like that could be 2:00 in the morning, or that could be, you know, 6:00 at night when you're getting your kids dinner, or like, I don't know what that looks like for you, or like, without someone explicitly saying, you can call me anytime, or like, you can chat me anytime. I'm here to talk about the good ones, the bad ones, whatever. It's hard, especially as, you know, caretakers, it's hard to be willing to say, no, I can take this for myself, or like, I need to, you know, I need something from you and I'm going to ask for it. I find that really hard. So here's encouragement.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to go to the next slide. We don't necessarily have to transition to solving this problem, because I think it's so much bigger than obviously an hour roundtable chat can fix. But I didn't know if there were things that you have found that you bring or talk about or remind folks of in postpartum sessions that you found helpful. I know, Serene, you've already talked about a couple of things that you do, and Chelsea, like, having these kind of explicit statements is super helpful, and having maybe a packet that everybody gets, that's super helpful. I have a kind of like, not really ritual, but like I have a list of things that I'm always going to bring you. You know, I make these like postpartum bites that I'm sure everyone has the recipe for, and like some kind of savory, warm food to have as a meal. I get tons of samples, so I always have a little, you know, packet of those. There are certain things that I always bring up in conversation. I always want to hear about, the birth story from their perspective, if they have concerns. Sometimes even asking them, like, were there things in the birth that you experienced that you weren't sure about, or that you didn't feel like went the way you wanted to, or that you didn't understand why they were happening? There are just so many of these kind of things. Sorry, someone had something in the chat and I didn't see it. It went away.
Oh, I was just saying about recipes, but that I wanted a recipe, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, no, and I think we actually even have a channel for it, so we should make sure to have all those things there.
Oh my God, I still have to read more. It's so good. It's like really good.
There's a ton of channels. Well, it's crazy.
I know, and it's hard to keep track of, like, wait, where should that one go?
Yeah, but I'll look.
Yeah, and we can put it in there's actually a channel for like continuing the conversation after a roundtable, so we can make sure to pop them in there too. Do you guys have stuff in particular that you bring that you feel like helps that transition?
I definitely bring food. I have like one dish that I cook for everybody. Serene's smiling because she got to eat it. But it's so funny. I'm so like routine with it. It's a peanut butter oatmeal, and when I get someone that like doesn't like peanut butter, doesn't like oatmeal, I'm like, what do I make? I don't know. It's like so part of my identity that like now I don't know what to do if they don't eat those things. But I do that, and then I'll bring like postpartum sitz bath herbs that are like little packaged, and usually I try and make that for them when I'm there. I'll like brew it, have it going on the stove while we're chatting, and then pour it into either the sitz bath or a peri bottle and leave them to do that for a little bit of self-care. If they want me to hold baby, or I leave them to do that when I leave so they can do it after I'm gone. Because I just want to make sure that they, take the time to do it for themselves and it doesn't just sit on the shelf and never get used. I just had a thought. Oh, one idea that just popped into my head is sometimes I'll bring, especially if they had a surprise gender, I might bring clothes for the gender of the baby. Like now that they know what it is, I'll bring like a little onesie to fit the baby's gender. And every once in a while, if I am prepared enough, I'll bring a card and like write a little thank you or congratulations in it. And maybe in that card could be a place to kind of write a closing statement of sorts. Something like, this isn't, the end of our professional relationship, but I'm always here if you have questions, or something like that. I never thought about putting it there, so that might be a good place to do it.
I found all of those things so intimidating when I was a new doula. I was like, wait, what? There's all this other stuff I'm supposed to be doing? I like thought that getting you successfully through the birth was like, that was, I showed up when you called me. I didn't sleep through the alarm. Yeah. But yeah, I found all of that super intimidating. But then, yeah, it just, like you said, it becomes now kind of part of the process that like, I always have the ingredients on hand for that postpartum thing that I make. And I have like a little stand-up cart with like a couple of little doodads from here and there of, samples of things or teas or whatever that, and it is really nice to know that I don't have to expend extra energy on this thing. I've kind of already put the energy into it, especially if it's, in the couple of days after the birth, that like, I don't have to go shopping for anything. I don't have to, reinvent this whole thing for myself. I just grab a bag and stuff it with a couple little things. And
yeah, that's a good point. Way back when I had more energy, I would make little onesies that said like, what did they say on them? I want to avocado you. Avocado. This is my avocado logo. But it's hard to keep up with it. You run out of it, and then I might always refill it. And, like you're saying, when you're 2 days of being at a birth and you come home and you're hungover from a birth, it's so hard to, like, think of how to put all that stuff back together if it's not just ready and sitting on hand. So that preparation ahead of time is such a good point, Audrey. It's got to be easy. Methodical almost.
Yeah. One of the things, or some of the discussion topics that I always bring up that I feel like help move us toward closure. Like I said, talking about the birth story, I always, usually just showing up, they want to talk to me about the birth story, or it just naturally happens that, like, let's go over this. A number of my recent clients have had kind of odd, like, discharge processes, or, you know, something happened in the couple of days after the baby was born, so they often want to talk about that too. We always talk about feeding. I like to bring up, like, and what has your partner been doing? Or, like, how have they been helping you? How have they been supporting you in this transition? And all of so many people want to talk about their, like, failed routines of, like, oh yeah, we got him on a really good schedule until last night. Like, yeah, of course. It's a newborn that's like 3 days old. It's gonna, but, like, that's just part of what we, you know, what always comes up in those visits that I feel like, yeah, it gives us a chance to kind of, like, reflect, and those are things that you will carry forward. And so I feel like it's a nice transition, or like a good transition topic to kind of move through. Do you guys have things that you always talk about?
One of the things I love, I was gonna say, one of the things I always like to ask them is, like, okay, over these days, like, what were your highs and your lows? I feel like that's a good way to, like, be able to identify areas for improvement, but also make sure we're, like, being positive at recognizing the beauty of this time too. It's always interesting to hear what they say.
And it's not a leading question at all. I really like how it totally is, like, leaves it open to see that maybe they'll think of something we would have never thought to, like, specifically ask about.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. It doesn't put any pressure on you to, like, be intuitive enough to have figured out what questions you need to ask. It's just like, tell me what's been.
And I think because that's a part of, like, how I am. Like, I'm very I like being able to be flexible. I'm not structured in very many ways. Like, I think that's just a nature of how I am, and something I've tried to lean into. So yeah, it allows me to open space for them and what they may need. It just varies so much every family, every birth.
Yeah.
I can sometimes feel like I'm not doing a good job in postpartum visits if we're not talking about certain things. Like, one of my recent clients, she just talked to me like she was talking to anyone else. Just, like, went on this, like, long story of, like, how the baby was doing something, or, like, oh, how hard it was to, like, sleep one night, or she was sleep deprived and she did this. And I was like, you've had people here that you've been telling this story to for days. Like, why? No, I'm here for, like, a deep emotional connection. We need to, like, talk about stuff you're not comfortable talking about anyone else with. But then, like you said, that's not, whatever, man. Whatever works for you, wherever you're at right now. Yeah. I asked, you know, some of those deeper questions and knew that she was solid on, you know, mental health and the things that we want to make sure she is, like, recovering well with. But yeah, it always is surprising to me, like, oh, you want to talk about that? Okay, that's fine.
I also find that if I do the prenatal or the postpartum visit within the first week of baby's life, which is often the goal, then they're just not ready yet for the deeper stuff. Like, they're in such survival mode that, and forget the fact that they're, like, learning how to breastfeed, trying to figure out sleep, recover from lack of sleep from being up from the birth, you know, all that stuff. There's also the new, like, they have to figure out how to get to the pediatrician, and, like, so much going on. They have family visiting, like, there's so much that they haven't really started to feel baby blues if it's going to happen, or postpartum depression if it's going to happen. Like, some of that really sneaks in once you feel like you should be finding your routine and they're not. That's when the heaviness comes in. And I think that sometimes that's when I feel like I do fail to, or not fail, where I worry if I'm not checking in enough at intervals postpartum, because after that first week, or after those first 3 weeks, you know, there's so much darkness that can come up for a new mom that's not being detected, you know. So once all of the excitement from the family, all those, first phone calls start to like disappear and all those meals disappear, then what? But it's not our scope, but my heart wants to be, checking in and make sure that somebody's looking for it, you know?
That's a really good point. Sorry, if I can ask, I'm just curious from your experience, like, how have you been? I know that's more like behavioral health, but have you had clients in the past where you've been able to like, oh, she is going through postpartum depression, and like, what are your signs, and like, what are your resources per se that you use in case that client, they're not even, they're already past your, you just give them resources, but if they reach out or if they don't, but you feel the nudge and you're like, how do I like slip it in there that's a situation that could be happening, and like maybe not be that person of support, but how to provide and pinpoint when someone may be going through that. Because even if that's not our expertise, I think Chelsea brought that good point. It's like, well, there should be a way to bridge that gap because I feel that what I've noticed, not from my doula role, but as a friend or in other circles of conversation, it's like moms don't want to admit that they're going through that because they feel they need to be super mom and they feel that it's gonna pass. But it's like, well, how do we not like keep going down, and how to like create space for healing and transformation, and just like that it's okay for them to be feeling the way that they do, because I feel like a lot of the times there's no space for that. It's like healthy baby, healthy mom, good to go, like move on, like that's all you should wear. But that's not true. So I'm just really curious as to how you get with that, or what are your experiences and etc.
So let me put this in the chat. There is a quiz I have from mentalhealthamerica.org that you can utilize. You can have them take it to like gauge where they're at, and it's very similar to like, for instance, when I went to the pediatrician, they actually left me when they would leave me in the room, like once or twice, they gave me a sheet that I believe was very similar to this. It's a very simple test that just asks you a handful of questions to like gauge how you're doing, and if there's an indication there for further help.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes, go ahead. I think that it's interesting. Everyone's different. Sometimes I've doulaed for a lot of people that are actual like personal friends of me first, and sometimes when they're friends, like you're saying, they don't always ask for help, but they're more likely to ask the doula for help than they would be maybe, a best friend, a mother, a family member, because they already have that kind of not just vulnerable relationship, but reviewed differently, so they know we have resources, so sometimes they will reach out and say like, hey, do you have any therapists? I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and I think I need to talk to somebody. So sometimes they come right out and say it. Sometimes I will get a message from the dad. If the dad is like, I'm having a hard time getting her out of this funk or whatever the case may be, they might reach out. And then other times I see stuff on social media. Sometimes that's my like red flag to reach out to them. There's a mom, Serene's in the group with my clients, that has had a little one who's almost a year old at this point and has had really bad eczema. Like
she's
like
gone through it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to her. I've reached out to her husband several times. I'll do check-ins just to make sure that she's doing okay emotionally, because it consumes her every single day, keeping this little one healthy. So sometimes the things that we see they share on social media, whether it's, I'm going through a sleep regression, or they might post a meme that talks about how lonely it is to be a mom, and that could be their like cry for help. You know what I mean? So I kind of like stay in tuned and like watch what they're posting, and that can sometimes be my like little alarm to reach out and check in.
I haven't actually had any, I've had a couple of clients who I've noticed aren't doing as well as we would hope in postpartum and have offered additional, resources and support. But I have found, since doing the training with Postpartum International specifically about maternal mental health, I bring up mental health every single visit. I bring it up in my intake. I have it online. Like, I emphasize the fact that we are going to talk about mental health and that like mental health resources are available. And like I said, include it in my initial consultations of like, in my postpartum visits, I will talk to you about your mental health. And I think that just having a person who's said to you 7 times already that they're concerned about your mental health allows them then, one, to be prepared for you to ask about it in postpartum visits, and also for them to be more open to saying, actually, I'm not doing super well, or like, I'm concerned about this thing. It has also meant then that I've had a couple of clients who have a mental health diagnosis or have had like depression in the past or anxiety or ADHD, who have then brought it up to me in visits and said, I know you mentioned mental health. Actually, I, have had depression in the past. And we talk about like, okay, let's make a plan now for what that's going to look like and how I and your partner and your, support system are going to work to get you through this, whatever happens.
Yeah. It's such a great idea, Audrey. Just being so open about it from day one.
I feel like it's the only way for me to, because I know that I have a hard time asking those questions or have a hard time talking about those things if I haven't brought it up in a time that's maybe less intense. Like, I don't want the first time I talk to you about your depression to be when you're already really struggling with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Heidi, if you haven't, or an intake form can always be evolving, but sometimes that can be a specific question you put on the intake form too. It'd be like, do you have any history of mental health or family's history of mental health? Do you have an existing relationship with a mental health counselor? Stuff like that you could put on there.
Yeah, that's really good. I have an intake, but I don't have that question. So that's like a really good question to ask. It's just like, it's such a good. And I guess if they don't want to answer it, because some people are touchy about that, they don't want to talk about that, or they don't want people to have, perception of who they are,
Yeah. Which, I mean, we can't control if they choose not to disclose it for us, for sure. But I think by, similarly, like on my intake, like there's a checkbox for like history of like assault or trauma. I forget exactly how I have it worded, but something like that, because it's sometimes easier for them to mention it just like on a form than to say it out loud to someone. Yeah. And so that I think by putting it on the form is just another opportunity for them to put that there. And maybe it's something they don't, whether it be mental health or something else, like for whatever reason, like I think sensitive things like that, although we would hope they'd be comfortable talking about it with their partners, sometimes, it's not something they really want to talk about in front of other, certain people unless necessary. So, yeah, I definitely think those are the types of things that it makes a difference to have.
I think it's important. It's true. I have the assault question, but I don't have that. So it's good to cover your bases, because it's like, I just say like, that's not my perception, but I just like no other. But I'm just curious, because whether we want to admit it or not, all these things affect the birth. So it's good to know. Like, and I think a lot of people put everything in cubicles, or like everything's separated, but everything's not separated. Everything's connected. Yeah. So it's really, really good information. I'm learning a lot.
I'm wondering too.
This kind of like goes off on a little bit of a tangent. I'm sorry, Audrey.
No, go ahead.
One other thing that I realized similarly, but it's not to go down that rabbit hole, is like things like OCD, like to learn that I don't know these things sometimes until we're in the hospital, and all of a sudden I realize this mom won't touch anything in the bathroom unless it's wiped down first. You know what I mean? I'm like, what's, so those little like mental health checks, or I don't know.
Yeah. I had a client that like thank God it was before the birth, but she was starting to experience certain symptoms that had me, one of the things that I always go to is, of course, diet, frankly with most things, and was having that conversation. Then she at that point disclosed like that she had a history with food basically, and that was not the most helpful thing to bring up. So yeah, there's so many different mental health things and stuff like that
yeah.
It's
and now you have to wonder how many we never learned about.
For sure. Yeah.
It makes me want to add a like section on an intake form of like 5 questions that you can rank from like 1 to 10 of like, my mental health is great, not so great, or like my mental health before I got pregnant was, my relationship to food. But like you said, people can choose to answer or not. We hope that all of these things come up if they're going to be relevant, but inevitably it doesn't. And there will always be something.
Well,
I will say, sorry, the last
No,
thing
go ahead.
The last thing I would say, I work in the behavioral health world, so that's why it's so predominant in my mind. But I will say, I think we've come a long way. We're not really quite there, but we've come a long way of like people actually being okay with asking for help, because I think that even 5 years ago, going to see a therapist was like, something's wrong with you if you saw a therapist. If you had a diagnosis, something was wrong with you. Even something as simple as OCD, like it was just like, oh my God, like how can you have an issue, of any sort? So I believe it's changed a lot. People are more open, but it's good to just, look at both sides, like how are people react. But in the end, if they chose you, then you know that it's a safe space already, right? So that they would, and that's why it's so important that they like you, so that they can actually hear these things,
right?
So, and I pop out listening, and nice to see you guys.
Yeah, good to see you too. I was thinking that was the last of my slides, but now that I'm thinking about it, I really want to have an additional slide of like, how do we create closure for ourselves in like feeling good about ending that relationship? I don't have any huge answers for that, but I like, one of my goals is to get everyone to leave me a review, but no one ever does. And so like, I cannot have that as a landmark of my successful completion of the relationship, because it just never happens. Or, I also sometimes am like, I want those baby photo updates, or like I want them to keep messaging me when things go well, but they don't. And so I can't have that as a, criteria. It just needs to be, emotional work, sharing, the things that we've learned, or sometimes I like journal about the things that I've learned from births. Or I would love for there to be one thing of like, you write it in the journal, and then I buy a nail polish for every birth. I love doing my nails, and I love nail polish, and so after the birth, I give myself a couple days to think about it, and then I like find a nail polish that symbolizes, usually with a fun name.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
some people
cute.
put things in jars or whatever. I'm like, I don't want a jar full of beads. I want nail polish. So, that's part of my, ritual. And like, but then sometimes I've noticed that the challenging births make it challenging for me to find the right polish. And so like, until I have the nail polish in its little box, it's like that birth is still weighing on me. It's like still there. I had a really challenging, I know it's weird, but that is just one more of those things of like, how do we, that like, it can't just be one thing. It has to be all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, just as far as, for you, like, I mean, okay, I loved, maybe it was from a book that I got the idea, I don't know, but I know like how some, especially like the old school midwives, like they had like their physical books, right, where they would keep their like client, no, like every client had their thing, right? And so I actually had bought, I must have it somewhere. I had bought a physical book that I was trying to do that so that I could like, one day look back and like have this documentation of like every birth, like the baby's name, the weight, whatever, and like when we met and stuff like that. And of course I have not kept up with it. But combining those things, I'm like, what if you try and make it a goal to be able to get a photo with the family, and you can make it clear that it's just for yourself, it's not for marketing, like if people care or whatever, and try and keep an album, and you can even make a swatch of the nail polish on the album with the photo. So cute.
Actually, this last birth was the first time I had ever gotten a selfie with the family after a birth. I like have no pictures of me with families. And as I was leaving, I was like, that was so nice. Why don't I do that? It feels like such an imposition to ask for a photo with them, but
what if it's just a photo of the baby's feet?
Aw.
I see Sarah Mockler does that a ton. She's always posting pictures of the baby's feet.
Cute.
So
and you
cute.
can write like their names on it or whatever. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I've been trying lately to take pictures of the baby's card if it's in a hospital that has their stats on it and stuff. The two things I'm consistent with is in my edoula.biz, like once I've done that postpartum, I'll go in and like change that client from active to completed, and that's just kind of my closure. And then I do have a spreadsheet that I keep track of, like, were they on time, were they early, was the baby, was it an induction, or all of my stats as a doula.
Love it.
Yeah, I should get the spreadsheet going. I feel like that would be really helpful. I do enjoy I have it all in my phone calendar so my husband can see when I'm on call for something, and I like closing the on-call thing. I like adjust the date to ending today, and that always feels very, very nice.
Yeah. It definitely is nice, going into edoula and like putting in like, okay, when the baby was born and the weight. Those little things is like, it definitely feels nice and does. I guess that is kind of like a little bit of closure, personally.
I always try to
take. It's so funny because I'll put their birthday on my calendar, the baby's birthday, because for a while, so like when I had Elliot, I hired Paulina, birth photographer, and on his birthday, she messaged me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like she'd messaged me on my child's birthday, and I'll see posts of like other, mainly birth photographers, that'll post like birthday pictures of their doula babies. So I would try and do that for like the first few, but you get to a certain point where it's too many. You can't do it for all of them. And then if you miss one, you feel like, oh my God, are they going to realize I missed them? Like, So I still like to do it. I like to put the birthdays on my calendar, but it does kind of just feel it's too much to keep up with, and then you feel like a failure if you don't keep up with all of them, but that's not part of the scope. So it's hard. I try not to like put too much pressure on myself for those types of things.
I will try and like at least like I wish I was the doula that sent the card every year on at least their first birthday. I so wanted to be that person. And you're right, like it's facing the disappointment. I still try and like send a text message or something that I'm thinking of them. I try to, but I try to be hard on myself. And I will say, like, even though I mark them as completed, like because I will archive clients eventually, I don't archive them until it's been over a year.
Me too. Same. Yeah, that's to hopefully remember to go back and say happy birthday.
To say happy birthday, and also like I don't know, just to kind of in case anything comes up, I feel like it's helpful to be able to go in there easily and just like see where they're at. I don't know. I don't know.
It's 2:00. I don't know if people have things they need to jump off to. Or closure for our closure meeting.
Own it. Let's do
happy.
It.
I'm happy to. This will be as soon as I edit the beginning and ends to make it uploadable. I will get it on the website, And we can certainly keep talking in the roundtable, like after discussion chat. I'll put that in the general chat so we can easily link to it. Yeah, and definitely I would love to hear other people's, or like if there's something that comes up, maybe we can even make, or like we can obviously check in about birth stories, but you can also make the collective part of our like closure process of like, just finishing with last postpartum with this person. I'm sure we can get some some space for each other for that, and how to help each other find satisfactory
like
closure.
a virtual bell ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Close a chapter.
Mm-hmm. Right. In the middle, and it is important to, like you said, have a bell ring for that, because it's easy to not mark it, or to like always feel like it's kind of still open, but also we need to move on to the next thing. Yeah. Like that. And hopefully further discussions on how to make good closure.